You will find in the window below a link to the teacher guide for lesson one, and it's going to bookmark you right to the materials prep of the teacher guide. Now, I'm going to only in this lesson scroll to the top to show you some key features of the teacher edition, and that would be looking back and looking forward to the next lesson. Obviously, this is the first lesson, so we haven't done anything here that we could look back on. And then it also tells you these are the lesson level performance expectations, which means that these are the three-dimensional goals for the lesson. So you've got your science and engineering practice of developing a model. Here are the science ideas we're engaging with, and the lens of energy and matter and patterns are being used. So here are two formative assessments you could use to see if they're meeting the goals of the lesson. If you scroll down, you will see a learning plan snapshot, and this gives you a pacing guide. However, if it's your first time implementing this lesson, you definitely will take longer than what it says here. Over time, you will get faster as you get to know the lessons and you know how to navigate and move students a little bit quicker. This will speed up, but generally, this is a little too short of time when it's your first time through. Now, these are all the materials that you'll need to collect to do this lesson. So it's a nice list, a checklist to get things out. But I'm going to share with you the materials prep section. Now, this lesson one has a significant teacher prep because it asks you to make the homemade bath bombs. And I'm going to give you a tip in a moment of where you can buy them. But first of all, you will see that it talks about some handouts that you'll need. I gave you a link to the Communicating in Scientific Ways poster. It also talks about getting things ready for science notebooks. Now, not everybody uses the same method for science notebooks. Some people use the handouts and create a binder, a 3-ring binder. Some people use composition books, which means you can fold the handouts in half, although that gets really thick by the end of a lesson. Some people glue or tape into spiral notebooks. I would say just don't find one way and stick with it. Try a few ways, see what works best for you. People seem to have a lot of success with either using a 3-ring binder or kind of creating packets of handouts that they use per lesson. Whatever works for you. Management of notebooks and handouts is always a thing. So, okay, so I want you to think about the two consensus models that we will have to create the posters, and I've blown them up a little bit for you. Now, what's interesting is it says create 2 chart papers to prepare for each class. Now, this one I don't actually see being used in the teacher guide. What I see is that you're directing students to do this on their handout. Now, if you want to do a poster of this as well, feel free, but I think just doing this handout and having them point to where the A, B, C, and D are on their initial model handout is just fine. And then it will lead us to this micro scale consensus model. If you want to do the macro scale model as a class 2, feel free. You might want to match the colors of like part A is green and that's green there. Part B is blue and that's blue there. These are to help people with color blindness. That's why these colors were chosen. Now, I would say that this poster you want to prep for each class. One way that teachers find it to be a little bit easier is to do this on a regular piece of paper under a dot cam. And maybe you print it out or you create one template and make copies of it and you project the dot cam. So it's a little bit easier to draw under a dot cam than it is to do it up on the board with markers. But if you've got plenty of space and you are great at making Anchor charts, I kind of like to make them. So this is what you'll need to prep in order to get that Anchor chart ready. And then you will also see that you're going to need some store-bought bath bombs for the first investigation. They say have about 4 to pass around because they're going to look at them before they put them in the water. And so you would need at least 4 to pass around and then 1 to put in the water per class. So you can figure out how many you need by the number of sections that you're teaching. But you will reuse the ones that are passed around, and then the ones that are put in water obviously are consumed. Okay, the homemade bath bomb investigation, there's a recipe that I've linked for you here. It can also be found in your Google Drive. They are time consuming to make and they can be a little bit tricky. A couple things I've learned when making them is you really need to press down the mixture in those ice cube trays so that there's not a lot of air in them because they will crumble. Another trick is let them dry all the way. If you are in a very humid area, they don't dry as quickly. So try to get them in a dry area. And once they're dry, some people put them in the freezer. Although I have had some people say when they took them out of the freezer, they got moist and then they started to fizz. So you got to be careful that they're not starting to fizz with the humidity in the air before you use them with the class. I will say ECA is a company that pre-makes bath bombs and you can order them. Saves a lot of time if you just order them from ECA. But if you want to make them, they're kind of fun. You will find the recipes here, and there's a YouTube video here to follow along with. But give yourself a couple days, like do it the week before so there's time for them to dry. You're also going to need a few materials so they can use to make observations, a toothpick, a paper plate, magnifying glass works. It says maybe also a digital scale and digital thermometer. The scale is going to come up later in the lesson, so maybe that brings some questions out about mass or is matter leaving. And then digital thermometer is fun. You will see a bit of a temperature change, but this unit really doesn't go in the direction of thermometers. So something to think about if you want to not include those. And that's about it. You will see that the teacher guide starts after that. So right now, what you're going to do in the discussion below to help you prepare is think about what do you need to do to get ready for this lesson. Do you need to modify a slideshow so that it flows better for your classroom needs? Do you need to put like a bell schedule or I don't know, something at the front? An icebreaker? Or are you going to remove some slides? Are you going to use all the slides? I've also given you a link to a slideshow, although remember, you can find all of this if you download the unit into your Google Drive, and then it will be yours that you own, and you can edit and keep it in your Google Drive. That's where all the Spanish translations are as well. All right, think about what do you need to do for prep? Post it in the discussion below. If you have time, come back and tell us how it went or post any materials you made to help others in the community. All right, good luck with lesson 1.